We will attack in a mirrored fashion. The president of Ukraine showed how Ukrainian Flamingos flew towards the Russian defense plant in Cheboksary. And he talked about what to expect in Moscow on May 9th. Putin's dreams have come true. Russians have found themselves back in the USSR. Because the internet went down, they can't order a taxi, pay for parking, or even make purchases in stores or at gas stations. Ukraine carried out a unique special operation in the Sunumi region to eliminate military units. Akhmat. How did they manage to do this, and how is Opti Alaudinov justifying himself now? Well, he's not a simple guy, but I always got along with him. What else did Trump say about Zelensky and the strength of Ukrainians? We're going to talk about all of this in detail right now, and please don't forget to like this episode. Ukrainian Flamingo struck the Russian Federation's defense plant in Cheboksary. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that this was a response to the continued terror from the aggressor state. He published a video of the launch of Ukrainian retaliatory missiles and commented on it as follows. Our long-range sanctions continue to operate quite justly in response to Russian strikes. There were combat launches of F-5 Flamingo cruise missiles as part of the Armed Forces deep strike operation against several enemy targets, in particular against military-industrial complex facilities in Cheboksary. Russia must end its war and move towards genuine diplomacy. We have made our proposal. Glory to Ukraine. President Zelensky also noted that Ukrainian Flamingo missiles covered a distance of more than 1,500 kilometers. At the targeted military production facility, the Russians manufacture relay protection systems, automation, and low-voltage equipment. The plant supplied navigation components for the Russian Navy, the missile industry, aviation, and armored vehicles. These are the things the Russians use in the war against Ukraine. Meanwhile, Moscow airports are experiencing disruptions due to drone attacks. Flight restrictions are being imposed, lifted, and then imposed again at Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, and Domodedovo, as well as at Zhukovsky Airport in the Moscow region. More than 100 flights have already been delayed. Meanwhile, there is total chaos in the Russian capital itself. Because the internet is down, locals can't order a taxi, pay for parking, or make purchases in stores or at gas stations. But what are Russians complaining about? After all, this is exactly what your Kremlin master, whom you worshipped, wanted. So, welcome to the USSR.
Doctors' guys, medals at McDonald's.
At McDonald's, the guys are ordering using Wi-Fi. Moscow, Lukoil. Once you pass the MCAD, the internet gets cut off.
The gas station attendant says nothing works except for cash.
Right here, situated directly within the historic city of Moscow.
That is absolutely unbelievable. What, you can't lower the pump?
Absolutely nothing seems to be working right now. Not even the local ATMs are functioning.
And Pyotrovka are working. Nothing. So, is it just Lukoil or all the gas stations? Well, obviously in Moscow.
So what about Putin himself? He's busy pulling air defense systems from all over Russia into Moscow. Machine gunners are stationed on the Kremlin towers. The bunker dweller himself, even though he's preparing for another round of victory mania, clearly doesn't feel safe. But are the armed forces of Ukraine preparing for this event? Let's take a look.
Hooray! Putin managed to turn the May 9th parade from a Russian triumph into a march of shame and fear.
A clash with neo-Nazis and Banderites on whom the US and their junior partners have placed their bets will be inevitable. Russia delivered a preemptive response to aggression.
Ukrainian drones are flying all over the center of the Russian capital.
Do you hear that? Can you believe it? Oh wow, there it is. Hovering right there in the sky, right above my own house. And
the closer it gets to the parade, the scarier it becomes.
This will be the first time there won't be any weapons at the parade, and Ukrainian drones might show up during the parade.
Air defense systems are being brought into the Russian capital from Kazan and Grozny to protect the parade, and they plan to create several layers of defense.
Can you imagine? It's a nightmare. But that's not all.
Security perimeters all around the capital, checkpoints at the entrances, access to Red Square is blocked off. Right by the Kremlin, there are armored vehicles and SUVs. And on the Kremlin's walls and towers, there are machine gunners. There's even a security officer with a machine gun hiding on the Spasskaya Tower of the Kremlin. Putin couldn't have imagined even in his worst nightmares that literally on every tower, wall, and just about every building of the Kremlin, Special Forces operatives would be stationed with machine guns, sniper rifles, and special equipment, just to make sure Ukrainian drones don't reach the bunker dweller. The systems installed on the rooftops of high-rise buildings turned out to be largely ineffective, and Muscovites are fleeing the city en masse.
Against the backdrop of this terrorist threat, of course, all possible measures are being taken to minimize the danger.
And these are the consequences of a Ukrainian drone hitting a high-rise in Moscow, just 5 days before the parade and only 6 kilometers from the Kremlin. As we can see, the air defense, which was pulled into the center in panic, did not help.
Christmas, hello? Once. Two.
As it turned out, the Ukrainian FP-1 passed through 3 air defense echelons. This map contains 101 confirmed air defense positions, and the route itself passed through the area of responsibility of at least 10 S-400 regiments, as well as dozens of Pantsir installations and Tor systems, which the bunker dweller is so proud of. At the same time, memes about preparations for the event are actively spreading online. Ukrainians are joking about heightened security measures and generating amusing images. We will defeat Ukraine. 2 days before, the war reached right up to the capital of the Russian Federation. And while Ukrainians are laughing at this absurdity, Putin is tearfully asking Ukraine for a ceasefire on May 9th.
Imagine Stalin, who in a phone conversation with President Roosevelt suggests to Hitler to arrange a ceasefire on November 7th. In honor of the great holiday, even Vitaly Averyanov, the deputy chairman from the Borsky Club, said, "How does that work?" It's ambiguous. On May 9th, the topic of Ukraine's denazification was supposedly raised. Supposedly there are heirs of Nazism there, and to call on the spiritual heirs of Nazism to ensure something by May 9th.
Back at the beginning of April, the Kremlin dictator was informed about the dangers of holding the May parade. Pro-war blogger Ilya Tumanov, known as Fight Bomber, said that the authorities were discussing where to hold the parade at all, in Moscow or in St. Petersburg.
Can you imagine that? At the moment of the parade, when everyone is standing at attention, a missile alert is announced. And then what? What will happen? Well, obviously the broadcast will be interrupted, you see, but what will be happening on the square and around it? Well, that would be quite an event, and of course it would be a significant blow. In terms of media impact, I even think that maybe nothing will actually reach there, but something still has to be done.
The parade rehearsal still hasn't been announced, even though it's usually held at the end of April. The rehearsals always used to start in Alabino, but even in the training ground group where the preparations are covered every year, there is nothing except for the reduction of part of the event.
Successfully achieving strategic goals, in effectively addressing the critical tasks for the ultimate benefit of Russia, its enduring greatness and prosperity. Glory to the victorious people.
Putin has demilitarized the victory parade. According to the statement from the Ministry of Defense, there will be no heavy equipment, which has always been present at the parade. Only cadets will march in the column.
Students from the Suvorov Military and Nakhimov Naval Schools Cadet Corps, as well as a column of military equipment. Due to the current operational situation, they will not participate in the military parade this year.
The underpasses on Tverskaya Street for show they put up, and they were blocking the road for the passage of that very heavy equipment.
Red Square is being intensively prepared for the events, but the number of guests has been greatly reduced. You can see this by looking at the stands. As for the general rehearsal, the date of May 4th was announced. But these dates keep changing.
The sky will be closed. The most Russians will see this year are the Swifts, who have always participated in the aerial part of the victory parade, while their show is still being considered. In Moscow, they are planning to shut off mobile internet during the May holidays.
Everything is going according to plan. According to plan. According to plan. According to plan. Just according to plan. Right on schedule.
Only a small number of leaders will attend this parade. Yes, I realize that this year there will be no Xi Jinping, like an umbrella. The Kremlin is especially vulnerable. As we can see, Putin is trying to avoid public humiliation. Above all, in the eyes of his own people. But so far, he hasn't succeeded.
President Volodymyr Zelensky called the Russian strikes on Ukraine on the night of May 5th cynical, especially against the backdrop of Kremlin statements about a ceasefire on May 9th, and he assured that Kyiv would act in exactly the same way. Zelensky recalled the treacherous Russian strike on Poltava region, where 4 people were killed, including 2 rescuers, and another 31 were injured. Strikes on Kharkiv region, where 1 person was killed and 4 were injured. On Dnipropetrovsk region, where 3 were wounded, and on Kyiv region, where 3 were also injured. Earlier, President Zelensky stated that it would be unfair for Russia to kill Ukrainians and then ask for a ceasefire for just 1 day. And this is absolute cynicism. I am quoting the Ukrainian president to talk about a ceasefire for the sake of holding propaganda celebrations while carrying out such missile and drone strikes. On all days before this, every day Russia can ceasefire and that would stop the war. And our response is, peace is needed and for that real steps are necessary. Ukraine will act in a mirror-like manner, the president assured. Zelensky. Record losses and no breakthrough. In April, the Russian army essentially failed its offensive. Analysts are talking about the worst results in a year and a half and a change of tactics at the front. What is behind this? Watch further.
Instead of the loudly announced major offensive, retreat and loss of positions. April 2026. A month the Russian command will try to forget. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the occupiers not only failed to advance, but also lost about 116 square kilometers of territory. This is the worst result since August 2024, during the time of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Kursk operation.
At the moment, in areas without active combat, the front lines are almost the same as they were a year ago. This indicates that the defense forces of Ukraine not only held back further advances by the occupiers, but also successfully counterattacked in several sectors of the front. We are talking about the successful actions of the Ukrainian defense forces at the junction of the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions.
The statistics speak for themselves. The average rate of advance of Russian troops has dropped to 2.9 square kilometers per day. A year ago, this figure was 3 times higher, almost 10. And over the past 6 months, Russia has managed to capture only 1,443 square kilometers, compared to more than 2,360 during the same period last year. In other words, the pace of the offensive hasn't just slowed down, it has collapsed. There are several reasons for this at once. First, the strikes by the Ukrainian defense forces on enemy depots, headquarters, and logistics. Second, problems with communications. Restricted access to Starlink in the occupied territories and the Kremlin's control over Telegram have significantly complicated the coordination of units.
The Ukrainian defense forces are successfully holding back the occupiers' advance in the Pokrovsk direction. The occupiers' offensive in this sector of the front has already been ongoing for more than 18 months.
But Russia is trying to convince people otherwise. One of their tactics is the so-called gray zones. Territories where there is no stable control are presented as if they have been captured. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War note that Russia's actual control is much less than what propaganda claims. However, at the same time, the very tactics of warfare are also changing. As the British publication The Telegraph writes, Russia is gradually abandoning mass assaults. The so-called meat grinder tactics, which resulted in enormous losses. The enemy is now switching to a different tactic.
Small groups of 2 to 4 soldiers, sometimes even individual soldiers, advance on foot, often at night with minimal radio communication. Their task is to find weak spots in the defense, infiltrate deep into positions unnoticed, and establish themselves there. Experts note that such groups are harder to detect and destroy than larger units.
Despite attempts to adapt, the key trend for Russia remains negative. The effectiveness of the offensive has been declining for several months in a row ever since the end of 2025.
Despite all the statements from both the Russian political and military leadership, including at the highest representative level, about full control over Kupiansk and Kupiansk, these settlements remain under control.
An additional blow to the enemy comes from Ukrainian attacks on economic and logistical infrastructure. In particular, ships of the so-called Shadow Fleet near Novorossiysk, which were used to circumvent sanctions and export oil, were recently hit. And while the Kremlin tries to hide its failure, the front increasingly reveals the real picture. Russia is losing momentum, territory, and initiative.
Ukrainian special forces carried out a unique special operation in the Sumy region to eliminate military units. Akhmat, more than 228 of Kadyrov's fighters were successfully eliminated, while Abti Alaudinov is unsuccessfully trying to justify himself. How an agent among the Chechens operated and exactly how he helped Ukrainian intelligence. We reveal all the details of the operation in this report.
A unique special operation to eliminate Kadyrov's fighters was successfully carried out by the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. More than 228 fighters from the Akhmat unit were driven from the front. The main intelligence directorate conducted a unique operation in Ukraine's Sumy region. From February to April of 2026, Ukrainian soldiers from the Shamanbat unit, which includes fighters from Free Chechnya, together with the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade Horin, carried out a comprehensive operation to eliminate Akhmat fighters who were operating in the Sumy region. I have been
in Ukraine since 2022, in the Gur, in Shamanbat. We are fighting against our common enemies, against the Kadyrovites, against those Russian scum.
How were our fighters able to accurately learn about the enemy's plans and track all their actions? As they explained in the Gur, an agent was passing information about the enemy's plans and intentions to the scouts. The agent turned out to be a former soldier from that same Akhmat unit. The Ukrainians listened in on every meeting of Alaudinov.
All our positions, wherever we have at least something firing large caliber rounds, all of that needs to be precisely set up. And if there had been an attack, then now, thanks to the targeting, there wouldn't even be tanks or infantry fighting vehicles left in Kyrgyzstan.
According to the GUR, the agent installed a listening device which had been delivered across the front line by FPV drones in the meeting room, Akhmat. All conversations were recorded. The Ukrainian side knew everything. Because they had all the information at hand, Ukrainian units targeted the locations where Kadyrov's men were concentrated. The agent explained how he made contact.
By the grace of the Almighty, I was able to establish contact with him. That's why I informed them about our every step and action. In February, we began an operation in the Sumy region. As soon as we started it, they, accordingly, found out as a result. We knew what they had done to us. How many of us were wounded, killed, how many went missing.
As a result of this operation, Akhmat of the GUR suffered its greatest losses since the start of the full-scale invasion. 41 people were killed, 87 wounded, and more than 100 went missing. But of course, the Russian side does not want to admit this. Alaudinov stated that all of this is fake.
Assalamu alaikum friends, good day to everyone. Today I was horrified to learn that apparently for 2 long months, both the dedicated Chekyrian and Ukrainian LGBT members were closely monitoring and listening in on all of my private meetings. I truly have to say, you certainly deserve a perfect score of 5 for your exceptionally innovative work with artificial intelligence. And of course, for the vital LGBT advocacy work you're doing right now.
He also called Ukrainian storytellers, which was to be expected. But as experts say, they will be conducting a thorough self-examination after this.
The material is of high quality. When someone tries to criticize it, saying it's all lies and never happened, that is, everything, at least from my point of view, looks as truthful as possible. This is not artificial intelligence. This is not a fabrication. In other words, everything corresponds to reality as much as possible. I'm sure they're working on correcting their mistakes over there. So, no matter how you look at it, even the Kadyrovites, not just the Kadyrovites, but also Russian military counterintelligence, are always trying to find the sources of such information leaks in order to prevent this from happening in the future.
Ukrainian intelligence has once again proven that it will find and eliminate anyone who supports aggression against Ukraine. That's why Abti Alaudinov shouldn't be making excuses, but should start using his head. And the Chechens should think about whether they really want to serve the Russians. who once waged the same bloody war against them and leave this world in disgrace, or live a peaceful life on the side of truth.
Armenia stands with Ukraine. During his visit to Yerevan, Volodymyr Zelensky held meetings with the Prime Ministers of Norway, Jonas Gahr Støre, and the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. According to him, the summit included detailed discussions on strengthening air defense, producing the necessary European systems and missiles, and supporting the Pearl program, and the possibilities of providing Europe with its own anti-ballistic means. Here are the details.
Another blow to the dictator. Putin's geopolitical plans are failing.
It is quite likely that we will not be capable of adding any new content here.
Armenia is changing its direction. European leaders are gathering for 2 unprecedented summits in Yerevan, which for a long time was considered Russia's closest ally in the South Caucasus. Also on Sunday, the president of Ukraine arrived in the capital of Armenia. Volodymyr Zelensky has already held a series of meetings with the heads of government of Norway, Finland, the United Kingdom, and the Czech Republic. Ukrainian leaders are using this summit to discuss further military assistance to Kyiv with their European partners, as well as the prospects for negotiations to end the Russian-Ukrainian war.
We need to focus on what we will do if Russia does not end this war. We need to keep up the pressure and we need peace. And of course, that is number one. We need to find a workable diplomatic format. Europe must be at the table for any negotiations.
Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the Armenian capital, his unprecedented participation in the summit, and his speech alongside Prime Minister Pashinyan. A powerful signal to Putin that the Caucasus is no longer the Kremlin's backyard.
Just imagine, really, not so long ago, Russian special services, the FSB, operated in Armenia as if it were their own home. They controlled everything there. Now they have effectively lost all direct control over, in principle, the most critical and fundamental sectors of the economy, and they have even lost influence over the Russian Federation's strategic military installations and bases. And just imagine what a blow this is, what a slap in the face it is, especially right before May 9th, a significant date for Putin when Zelensky arrives at the summit of strategic partnership.
For the first time, a country that for decades had been Russia's closest military ally in the Caucasus is hosting leaders from nearly 50 European countries. This is essentially a demonstration of a new direction, from Moscow to Brussels. This is the first ever bilateral EU-Armenia summit in history, which will be attended by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa.
By holding a summit at such a high level, with a particular focus on security in Armenia, Europe is also sending a strong signal to the countries of the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. And most importantly, of course, to the Russian Federation as well, that reclaiming its spheres of influence, as Putin has dreamed of as he has tried to restore those that existed during the Soviet Union, is now an absolutely unattainable and unrealistic goal for him.
Russia's inability to fulfill the role of security guarantor has led to a logical outcome. Armenia is turning towards Europe. This is yet another indication that the post-Soviet space is no longer a monopoly field, a playground for the Kremlin.
Putin's influence in the South Caucasus has significantly weakened since the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine. The amount of resources that Putin can accumulate to advance his own policies has narrowed significantly. And we can see this not only in the Caucasus, but also in Central Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. For Putin, the attack on Ukraine became a decisive factor that significantly diminished his status as an international player.
Relations between Russia and Armenia are experiencing a deep crisis. After the CSTO refused to help Armenia during the conflicts with Azerbaijan, Yerevan began to distance itself from Moscow. For Putin, this means yet another painful blow to his ambitions to maintain control over neighboring countries.
The lack of support from Moscow became the last straw in the relationship between Armenia and the Russian Federation. In Yerevan, they understand perfectly well that Russia imposes many conditions, but at the same time is not ready to be the kind of state that provides the benefits it could. To be the state that acts as a hegemon in the region.
The summit on May 4th to 5th becomes the point of no return, where Armenia effectively trades outdated Russian guarantees for real integration into the Western security and economic architecture.
The President of the United States was asked on Salem News Channel how he feels about the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. He's not an easy guy. We want to achieve a settlement, and they're losing territory, but it's costly both for Russia and for themselves. And I like Zelensky. I've always somehow gotten along with him, except for that moment in the White House, which I found a bit aggressive on his part. But in the Oval Office, that's what Donald Trump replied. Then he added, I'll say this, this is what was meant. Ukrainians are fighting. Regardless of whether they have excellent equipment or not, they are capable of fighting. Well, probably only seasoned Trump experts can make sense of this monologue and what meanings the US president intended, if there were any meanings at all. Trump's disapproval rating in the US has reached its highest point during both of his presidential terms. More and more Americans are dissatisfied with the president's actions amid the war with Iran and rising prices. The disapproval rating of the Republicans' policies has reached 62%. This was shown by a poll conducted by the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos at the end of April. But can all of this really lead to Donald's impeachment? That's what we're going to talk about. More details coming up, and don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel Ukraine Today.
A new anti-record has been set in the United States. President Trump's approval rating continues to fall and has reached its lowest point across both of his presidential terms.
He wants to be a dictator. If we wanted to keep a dictator, we would have kept the King and Queen of England.
According to a joint poll by the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos, only 37% of Americans approve of Trump's actions. At the same time, the level of distrust has risen to 62%. This is the highest level of distrust during his time in office. At the same time, most Americans believe that the president lacks clarity and intelligence.
The US, together with its partners, has launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, and most extensive military offensive operations the world has ever seen. We are going to hit them very hard over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We will send them back to the Stone Age, where they belong.
And also, that his physical condition does not allow him to effectively fulfill his presidential duties.
Trump needs to be stopped. That's exactly what our slogan, No Kings, is about, because he can't just do all these damn things he's doing, not without collusion from Congress and the thugs in his administration. They are bound to him by fear of losing their jobs, their power. This is devilry.
Other studies record an even sharper decline. According to this poll, the approval rating has dropped to 34 to 36%. This is also a historic low. For comparison, immediately after the inauguration in January 2025, Trump's approval rating was about 47 to 49%. The main reasons for the drop in ratings are the economic situation and foreign policy. Only about 34% of Americans approve of the president's economic policy, and just around 25% of respondents are satisfied with his policy regarding the cost of living.
My mom lost her job because Trump cut a lot of jobs. Yes, she lost her job, and it's scary. She has several $1,000s in rent debt, and we don't know what will happen next.
Trump's policy regarding the overall cost of living received the worst ratings. Only 23% of Americans approve of it, while 76% do not support it.
They cancelled health insurance for the sake of tax breaks for billionaires. And now many people have lost their health insurance and can't afford food. Gas prices have gone up. The situation has become really bad for many people. And
even the issue of immigration, traditionally a strong point for Trump, turned out to be a negative. 40% of citizens approve of measures in this area, while 59% hold the opposite view. There is particular dissatisfaction with the US military operation against Iran.
The entire country could be destroyed in a single night, and that night could come tomorrow.
According to various polls, it is supported by 35 to 41% of Americans, while the majority, up to 61 to 66%, are opposed.
Sending billions of dollars. For what? I don't know. People in Gaza are suffering and are being treated like dirt. People in Iran, all the innocent people who are being killed. Many people understand, including those in uniform, that this is not our war. This is a war that cannot be won. They have started to see the consequences. It will take decades to overcome these shocks. We are already destabilizing the global economy right now.
At the same time, within the Republican Party, Trump's position remains strong. He is supported by about 85% of party supporters. However, among independent voters, his approval rating is much lower, around 25%.